have you wanted to make a cowl on your rotating double knit loom from KV Looms? Well, I have. So I have a hat that started with the chunky open rib stitch here, and it's got a nice little brim for my slouchy tam hat that we had, but I want to make a matching cowl, so I'm starting it off the same way, and instead of making the crown for my hat, I actually want to finish this off and make it into a cowl. So I'm going to show you how to finish this off today, work it in a chunky open rib stitch for the second brim or second ribbing on the end here, and then make a nice finished relaxed opening. So tune in today and we'll work this here on GoodKnit Kisses. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. To get the pattern for the twisted brioche cowl we're featuring today, please click down in the video description below and get the link to our blog. And we also have it available on our Ravelry and Etsy stores if you'd like it ad-free. We also have the pattern for our twisted brioche slouchy tam that matches the twisted brioche cowl. The difference in the two are you're going to have a longer brim on the hat. Okay, this tam pattern is a hat. And then of course you'll have a crown on the hat. And on the cowl, we're just about 2 rounds shy on this brim, and we'll make it matching on the top part. So in this video, I'm going to show you these last few rounds and how to finish that off. But we do have a video working the hat here. So it's going to be rounds 1 through 63 that are identical. Now the only caveat, the only difference is I'm going to have 2 rounds less on the brim than I do on the hat. So those notes are going to be in the typed out pattern, and I will give you that information here. But if you are here just to make finish up any cowl pattern you have, you can totally do it with these techniques here. And whether you make a longer or shorter brim, that is completely up to you. Now we also have right and left-handed tutorials. My clockwise pattern is going to look more like a left-handed person is doing it, but you can use it for right or left-handed. And then we have our counterclockwise where you're going in this direction. This is the way you're wrapping. I happen to be right-handed and I'm doing the counterclockwise on this video, but the video will be mirrored for clockwise. So either one, those videos and the patterns discussed are going to be down in the video description in the links below. Right, so we're at the end of our round of brioche. If you're following the main pattern here, or just disregard this part if you're working on another pattern. And I have my color A that was on the top, color or contrast A that's on top, but you still have on the inside loom this color B present. So you need to take color B and you're just going to cut a nice long tail and let it lay on the inside of the loom, and you're not going to do anything with it. Okay, so prepare the top ribbing by knitting the bottom loop color B over the top loop of color A on the inside of the loom. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to knit over bottom loop over top. So if you were working on any other pattern, just make sure that you only have 1 loop on your pegs on the inside and your pegs on the outside. So go ahead and do that and pause your video, and we'll come back up to begin the ribbing part. We'll see you in a moment. All right, we've knitted over all of the inside pegs, so we only have 1 loop on the outside and the inside. And this is my peg 1 right here, just to kind of reintroduce to you if you didn't see the other video. And we're going to begin making our ribbing, and we set that up by taking the second loop, all the even loops, and place them on the odd loop. So we're going to take peg 2 on the outside and place it on peg 1. Move over and place peg 4 onto peg 3, peg 6 onto peg 5, and so on. So just keep going round and round, moving every other peg back 1. Pause your video. I'll meet you at peg 1 when we get that done. All right, so we have our chunky open rib stitch. We've already begun the setup, moving peg 2 to peg 1 and every other peg backward 1 as well. So we have 2 pegs on all of the odd pegs on just the outside of the loom. And then we did not do anything on the inside and continue that. So now we're ready to wrap this twice. We're gonna do this first wrap, and then we'll do the second wrap together. So you should have your color A ready, and you're going to go around the first peg that has the 2 loops on it. All right, so we're going to wrap around peg 1 on the outside and then go jump to peg 3 on the inside. So straight across you have 1 to 1. So you've got, this is 1, we have 2, and we have 3. So we're going to wrap around the outside of peg 1, inside of peg 3, and then come straight down to peg 3 on the outside, and then go up and over to, we're going to skip 1 peg and go over 1 more, and then come straight down and pick up this one. So that would be peg 5 on the inside and peg 5 on the outside. So we're going to go up, skip 1 and go on the inside, come down to the outside. Skip 1 on the inside, come down to the outside. Keep going. So go ahead and do that. Pause your video. And you can push down the stitches if you need to. Oops. Okay, as we finish, this is my second to last peg here, and we're going to come up and then skipping 1 peg over. Now we are going to begin our second wrap, which begins on peg 1 on the inside. So this is the only place where I'm going to have 2 wraps next to each other on the back. So you're going to see after we wrapped peg 1 in the inside, we're going to come down and wrap peg 1 on the outside. So now this one is going to have 4 loops on it. So you can see we have the first 2 loops, and then we have these next 2 loops. We're going to come to the inside, and we're going to pick up that skip loop on peg 2, come down and over, and we're going to pick up the loops on peg 3 here. So now we have 4 on our outside loom, and come back, and we're going to skip and pick up the pegs that we had missed before. So now we're picking up all the even pegs, and then come down and get that one again, come back, pick up the skipped one, come down, go around, you got 4 loops, pick up the skipped, and come around and do that all the way around. So pause your video as you need, push down those front ones, it's going to get full with yarn, and continue wrapping. If your wrapping is off, you're going to want to unwrap and do it again. Make sure that you didn't skip a step. Be sure and rewind that and pause that video if you need to make sure you've got it all. All right, here we go. Got this last peg on the inside and come down, and we have completed wrapping for the chunky open rib stitch. So now we want to lock in this last peg on the inside. So I'm just going to turn this around and knit that over just to lock that in. All right, so let's look at the front here, and we're going to just knit simply 2 over 1. I'm going to knit the bottom 2 stitches, bottom 2 loops over the top. All right, so that's on peg 1. Leave those 2 alone. Take the bottom 2 loops, move them over the top. You might want to push those down just in case you kind of get a little bit fast and you may actually unhook them. So I like to put my finger here and make sure that everything's nice and taut. Okay. Nice and tight. And just keep going. So you're going to knit 2 over 1 on the outside loom and 1 over 1 on the inside loom. All right, so go ahead and go around, do that, and then do 1 over 1 on the inside. Pause your video and I'll meet you back up for the next round. See you then. You have finished round 1 of the chunky open rib stitch and knitted over the bottom loop over the top. So you have 1 loop on the inside of every peg inside of your loom, and on the outside you have 2 loops on every other peg. So you're ready to continue on with your brim. So this is where you decide how long you want this brim to be. I did my original brim on the cowl with 4 rounds, and on my hat I had done 6 rounds. So So you can repeat this 3 more times if you want the short one, or you can repeat it 5 more times if you want the longer one, or however long you need for your particular pattern. So go ahead and wrap those again. Let's just remind you how to do that. So your yarn's coming from the second to last peg, and you're going to go around the very first peg here, and you're going to pick up peg 3 in the back or in the inside, come down and pick up every peg that you see that has something on it. So just miss the skipped ones, okay? So we're gonna go into peg 3, then we're gonna come up and skip one, come down, go up and skip, and go around. So this should be a little easier now that you understand it, and it follows the pattern easily down here. Okay, as we come to the end, you're just going to come back up and pick up peg 1 on the inside loom, come down to peg 1 on the outside, and come up to peg 2. Pick that one up, and now we're simply picking up every other peg on the outside and every other peg on the inside. So it has this sort of zigzag where it misses. It doesn't come straight across at all. So go ahead and do that, and when you've done, simply knit over 2 over 1 on the outside and 1 over 1 on the inside. Make as many rounds as you need. Pause your video and we'll be back to finish this off. We'll see you soon. Once you have your cowl at the right length or rounds, you're going to prepare by moving 1 loop over. So you're going to take the loops on the outside peg that you have 2 loops on. You're going to pick up the first loop and move it over from peg 1 over to peg 2. And at peg 3, you've got 2 loops. You're going to pick up the top peg and move it over to peg 4, leaving 1 on peg 3, and so on and so on. So lift the top peg off or top loop off and move it over 1 peg. So you're going to do that all the way around on the outside of the loom. Pause your video and I'll meet you back up. To make the relaxed rib basic bind off, we're going to be bringing all of the inside loops to the outside. So we need to make sure to have 1 loop on the outside of every peg, and now we're going to bring the inside loops up and over to the outside, just like that. And you're going to do that on every single one. So pause your video and meet me back up at that point when you've completed that. We'll see you soon. The following sequence will make a relaxed rib basic bind off, which adds extra yarn to have a larger opening in the round. Now, I did teach the relaxed basic bind off in another video, so you can see that down in the link in the video description below, and that is more for a stockinette, or if you have brioche that doesn't have the ribbed ending here, and we're trying to match the ribbing, so this is why I'm calling this the relaxed rib basic bind off. So we're going to be incorporating in some knit and purl stitches. Every other stitch is going to be knit or purl, working along, but we're going to have some extra spaces in here in between. So bear with me as we go through it. All right, so first we're going to start by knitting over 2 over 1 a U-wrap knit stitch on peg 1. So you're just going to U-wrap knit that and lift both stitches up and over. You can do 2 at a time or 1 at a time. And now we're going to bring the yarn forward and we're going to purl these 2 stitches together. Okay, we're going to lift that up and over, and we're going to knit over this stitch here, but we're actually going to add some extra yarn into it by knitting these together. So we're going to wrap around, and it's going to look more like an E-wrap. So just wrap that around like that. It's a U-wrap, but the yarn kind of comes from the back here. So knit up and over. And now we're going to actually leave this space here. Do not move this over just in this first part of the sequence. All right, so now we're going to come to our repeated part. So we're going to bring the yarn behind this skipped peg here, and we're going to knit this next stitch. So we're U-wrap knitting this stitch. Oops. Knit both stitches over, and now pick up the knit stitch, and we're going to bring it back over. So this is peg 2, and we're bringing it over to peg 1 and placing it on the peg. And you're gonna just snug it up a little bit, leave this extra yarn space and knit over. All right, now we're going to pick this stitch up and move it over just one peg. And this is our peg 1 now. And I'm going to snug this up but leave it nice and loose here. Go past this empty peg. We're always leaving a space now. And we're going to purl these 2 stitches together. So we're doing knit, purl. Pick that up and place it on peg 1. Okay, just going to pull it a little bit tight, but not too tight. We're leaving that extra slack. All right, and then we're going to knit those 2 stitches together. Pick it up, and we're going to move it over 1, still leaving that space. All right, so now we're ready to begin our sequence again. We're going to knit these, move it over, knit it again, and then we're going to move this, purl, move it over, knit again. So let's repeat this sequence. Here we go. So we're going to knit 2 stitches together, pick it up, that's peg 2, move it to peg 1, and we're going to wrap and knit this over, pick it up and move it over 1, bring our yarn to the back, purl these 2 stitches together, pick it up, move it over, knit these 2 stitches together, pick it up, move it over, and then you repeat. So you're just going to keep going all the way around. Pause your video and meet me back up when we're at this space right here. We'll see you soon. All right, so I have 2 loops left on this last peg, and it's going to be a purl. Go ahead and purl those together, place it on that other peg, knit the stitch, and then now we just need to cut this yarn, and we're going to pull that on through, and we're going to take this off of the loom. And if you had used a thicker yarn than recommended, thicker than a worsted weight or something, if you're having trouble getting it through here, if it's just really thick, you might need to take off this outer loom, and you would just push on this part to release that. All right, so you're just going to pull this on through, pause your video, and I'll meet you there, and we will sew this part together. All right, so this is your end here, and it's nice and stretchy, and it's not quite as stretchy as a brioche, so if you're not working with brioche, that's okay. It should be a nice soft opening for your cowl. And you have this sort of jog here. I'm going to show you how to fix that. So you want to put your needle on your yarn here. Okay. So you have these loops here on the end. You've got all these chain stitches here. So we're going to go all the way down to where we see the last chain stitch, which is right here. Trying to make sure I'm going through a full chain and not splitting yarn. Okay, so now we're just going to connect these 2. So we're going through the outside here and go up and around, and then we're going to come over and we're going to make a loop here. We're kind of faking this part, and we're going to come through these 2 and pull, and you can see how you can match the size of those loops there, and you can just go back through that same one again to reinforce it. Make sure you're not pulling too tightly, and then just come to the back and go through these stitches, and then weave in your tail. So here in this case, I'm just gonna come around, I'm gonna come down a little bit more to the, I like to come to the edge of one of these ribs here, and actually let me come back to this one. This is the rib I want. So here's 2 sets of ribs. So we're gonna go around this part. So I'm just gonna go around the outside of that rib like that. You can see how it works its way down. It still remains stretchy. And then I'm going to come around and down here, and then I can weave my way up the same way I did before. So just weave in your tails like that, and once you've got in a good length, you can just cut that off. Make sure that you're obviously matching your matching the color of yarn. So if you're doing a 2-color design like this one, you want to stay in that area. So just weave that in, and then weave in your extra tails, and then you'll want to fix the anchor yarn. I've begun one down here. If you want to see the link to actually how to do this, I've got a link down below. You can see that I began taking my crochet hook, and you can see how it's loose over here where the anchor yarn is. I've just come over to the side of where my tail began. I picked up the loop, and then I just start looping through all of these loops here. And you can see this is what it's going to look like. We'll end up pulling this part of this anchor yarn out, but this is what it looks like right here. And then you just open this up and then put your hook through. Just put this in here, and then you start picking up all of these loops one by one and pulling it through. Okay. So I'll show you what this looks like after I'm done. If you want that video on how to actually do that, go click down below, and we have a timestamp to jump to that part of the video where we did this same hat here. All right, we'll see you in a moment. All right, so here is my finished cowl. You can see that both edges are nice and relaxed. They are very similar to each other. They're not technically matching, but they're very similar looking, about the same height in the brim or the ribbing. So we have our upper ribbing and our lower ribbing, and you can also see on this one we've got it reversible. So if you're curious, what does the inside of that brioche look like, it's ribbed here, and then we have it twisted on the outside. So whether you're doing another pattern or not, this is just a fun technique to turn your hats into cowls. So here is that matching hat or tam. It's just an extra super slouchy one, but I hope that you enjoyed it. If you like the pattern for either one, again, they're down below. Please tell me what you liked most about this tutorial, and if you have others that you'd like to request. We'll see you soon, and happy looming. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.